Hello, and welcome to the Raising Risk-Free Teens podcast. I'm your host, Cheryl LaBelle. In this risky world we live in today, we want to equip parents to help their teens avoid unnecessary risk. We'll touch on hot topics of the current culture. We'll talk about sexual risk avoidance and any other important information to keep you informed as a parent. All of our topics are rooted in science, facts, and medical accuracy, not opinion. Thanks for listening and hope you enjoy the podcast. A new study has been released by the State of Our Unions on the dating recession, and this is released by the Whitley Institute alongside the Institute for Family Studies. They monitor the current health of marriage and family life in America, which that makes a lot of sense because it's family studies, okay? And so this is their interest. In this 2026 report recently released, they shared research findings on the challenges of contemporary dating for young adults in that age range of 22 years old to 35 years old. Okay, now full disclosure, of all of these survey results, they are focusing on the dating experiences of those single adults who do expect to marry one day. Okay, so we're doing a study, reviewing the research on young people, young adults, 22 to 35, who want to get married one day. And the results, though, are quite astonishing. For some of us, this might be surprising. For others, maybe with our own young people, we're not so surprised. Katie McNeely is with me to talk about this data that's shared in the report. And more importantly, we want to, over a two-part series, not only understand the results, we are going to speculate a little bit on why we think our young people are struggling with dating. But then in part two, we also want to explore how we can help our young people get back into confident dating relationships, especially if dating is practice for marriage one day. So, Katie, thank you so much for being with me today. Let's start this conversation with this result. What was some of your initial thoughts about the data that we saw?
Well, yes. Well, thanks for having me, Cheryl. So happy to be here. But it was something, as I read through this report, like you already said, I was surprised by several things. And I do think it's important to go over these findings to understand, to help us understand what's going on with the young people, because we are talking with teenagers in schools, but also in our own lives, wanting them to have healthy futures, that we have said here so many times that we are wanting them to avoid these risks, especially with sexual activity. But a lot of times we're also saying, but that doesn't mean we don't want you to be in dating relationships. We're not saying sex is so risky until you're married, so you better not date until you're getting married. Like, that doesn't make sense. We want them to date, but then it is so interesting to be finding out that the dating profile, the dating culture right now is hard for young adults and teenagers. And sometimes we can have, I can have ideas or misconceptions of what I think it is and what it actually is. So this study really did help me understand. There are several things we're gonna talk about, like what you said. We're gonna talk about what the study said, and that's where I think I'll just dive in. And you said they did focus on people who do expect to marry. Even in the study that they did, over 80% of the people in the study said they expect to be married.
Yeah, and it's not distinguished between males and females, because it would be easy to be like, oh, well, all of the women want to get married. No, a lot of these questions that they ask, they point out very quickly because they want to validate their findings as well. And bring attention to the male and females, the percentages are pretty similar. They're not that far off from each other. So I think 86% of participants expect to marry.
Well, but it is exactly what you're saying, that over and over in many of the areas we will talk about, they say, and there is hardly any difference between gender or age. Yes. And they'll say that really all of their participants are wanting to be married and wanting healthy experiences. But we're going to go through a little bit of research that suggests that's not what's happening. It's not what they're experiencing, even though they want it. So we can dive in with what the findings were. And then I really am interested to have the conversation of what do you think is happening? Why? What is leading to this? What do you think is missing? And then, like you said, how can we help? So at the beginning, when we're saying 86% do expect to be married, but of the participants then they talked about, only about 1 in 3 of them were actively dating at this time.
Yes.
So there's the first culture of dating. They want serious relationships to end in marriage, most of them, but not a lot of them are actively dating at this moment. And they go into why. And it's not even that they don't want to date. It's not even that they're saying, no, I want to get married. I don't want to have to date. It's they want to date. They're just not. That's the first finding that would be surprising, maybe for some of us. The second one goes into part of it, or a lot of it, really, when you read this, they are lacking confidence in their dating skills. That part, to me, this is where I don't want to come in and be like, yes, I am the expert in this. We are very well trained in so many areas. In this moment of why are young people lacking confidence in dating, this is where I'm going to be leaning on this research to help me understand why, and why I think it's important to have the conversation. But they lack faith in their dating skills and in their ability to initiate promising romantic relationships. That's what the findings were over and over. Only about 1 in 3 young adults express much faith in their dating skills, and it's the same for males and females. About 1 in 3 young men and 1 in 5 young women expressed confidence in the fundamental skill of being able to approach someone they were romantically interested in. So 1 in 3 and 1 in 5. They're not even thinking that they can approach someone, which I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I have a list of, okay, so what is going on? Because there are layers and layers and layers to this. And so I also, when we get to the part about like, well, what do they need and how can we help? It will not just be this checkbox of here's how you date. There's layers to build up first.
Well, even like how our young people are creating relationships, it looks very different. For a lot of us, for you and I, as we're talking about this, not only do we lean on the experience we had when we were younger, thinking about teenagers and young adults, our world has changed a lot since then. And looking at our own children and the world they're growing up in and these high school students that we go in and talk to in the public school system as well, how they connect with people and build relationships has drastically changed. And so if they are lacking confidence or competency or even that efficacy, which is that confidence in themselves in dating, well, how confident are they in building friendships as well?
In life in general.
Yeah.
So this also helped me make sure I'm looking at my own assumptions. What has been so interesting in reading this, in classrooms, I go in and I ask students, because we are dealing in the classroom with a lot of assumptions about sex and sexual activity.
That everybody wants to have sex. And you actually have a lot of young people that say, no, I do want a meaningful relationship, and it's not just about
yes.
sex. You have others where definitely that is something that's going on with their hormones and all of that. But not all teens, just like not all young adults, are looking for quick hookups.
Right.
But we probably hear more about that.
And you feel like that's the assumption. And so then we even break it down a little bit more and ask teenagers, well, what are some other assumptions that you think society makes about you in general? What do you think older people think of you? And actually the answers are really heartbreaking. But it also, as I'm reading this, it challenged my own assumptions that I'm making as a person who's actively trying to challenge those weekly, heading into classrooms with teenagers, challenging my own assumptions about teenagers and young adults. Because the next finding was that young adults really do desire a dating culture aimed at forming serious relationships. And there can be an overarching idea, they just want to have fun. They don't want anything serious. They're afraid of commitment. They're not looking for long term. They just want what's right now. And that's not true. A misconception is they don't want marriage, or it will take their freedom. They don't want to be committed. That is the opposite of what is found. That they want commitment. They want serious relationship. They want to know and be known. And that, again, when we get to the section of like, what is missing? What has been missing? There are layers of layers again. But this whole thing challenged what misconceptions do I have But they do want more of the traditional purpose for dating, which is building the committed romantic relationship. And this is one, again, that's across the board. Men and women, younger, older, they strongly endorse a dating culture focused on forming serious relationships and emotional connection.
Yes, which is that intimacy. And even through our friendships, we have that close familiar relationship, right? That we can share all kinds of things with them. And so in a dating partner, we want that as well.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes time to build that up. And we live in a world of instant gratification.
Mm-hmm.
So for sure, we are seeing that in our young people. It was interesting to see that. But as we think about those results in this survey, that makes sense. That kind of tracks with what we're seeing in our culture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And again, so right, when I'm thinking of, well, what am I assuming? And then I think, okay, well, maybe I'm just not looking around as closely as I think I am. So it was a really good, this has just been really interesting to me. The next really interesting point, because we are talking about the dating culture and why young people desire to be married, but they are having trouble dating and all of it. One of the main things it says, they reported significant financial and social emotional barriers.
Yeah.
Significant, that word was used. So money worries, self-confidence, past dating experiences, big, big barriers. More than half of the respondents reported that they didn't have enough money to date. Mm-hmm. That is part of the barrier of keeping them, which, again, we could go, follow that rabbit trail of, okay, well, if you're wanting to traditionally date to form serious relationships and emotional connections, then you think of traditional dates. Mm-hmm. That would cost a lot of money, and especially now that everything costs so much more than it did even a year ago.
Yeah, and again, that gap between males and females, you would think that maybe like in a traditional kind of setting that it would be more the males, but it actually is pretty close. Percentage-wise, there are no gender differences. It is the same concern equally among males and females.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. They are thinking they don't have the money to date in the conventional commercial ways. But then also, like just behind not having enough money, they also have the personal factors that they reported, lack of confidence and bad dating experiences in the past, which kind of leads to the last big finding is that dating resilience is low among young adults. And thinking of if they have had a bad experience, if they have had a bad breakup, if they have experienced emotional harm, we've talked about that so many times, they don't know or feel confident or how to move forward from that. Mm-hmm. So all of those things, I'm so thankful to have a study that spells it out that clearly based on many results, many people responding, and not just, well, some of them didn't. Overwhelmingly, the respondents said these things. So for sure, there is a gap between marital expectations and dating skills. Mm-hmm. And what do we do?
Yeah, and just because you want something, you can't just have it. It does. Yeah, it takes time to build that up. And if our young people don't have good personal or interrelational skills, if they can't pick up on relationship cues, and that resiliency that's coming in here, this last piece of data that you presented, some of it said that only 28% report that they can stay positive after a bad date or relationship setback. So if it's a sudden breakup and they didn't see it coming and it seems unexpected, then it's harder for them to recover. And more than half agreed that their breakups have made them more reluctant to begin new dating romantic relationships. So you're hesitant. How do we build that resilience? I think sometimes, too, if they don't have those good social cues, if they think that the other person is no longer attracted to them, then they end the relationship. And then that feels like it's out of the blue. Like you said, there's layers. It's not just one thing. How do we start teaching our young people this? Well, let's explore a little bit why do we think that we're in this situation that our young people are struggling so much with how to date and getting that intimate, long-term, comfortable, secure relationship.
Right. And it's because while you were talking too, I also thought, let's be sure to validate that these are all normal things. This is not something that's like, well, you should just be able to bounce back after a bad breakup or an emotionally harmful situation. Like, who cares? Just move forward. That is not what we are saying when we say, okay, so now what? If it's so hard, now what? It's not just going to be an easy, like, yeah, just deal with it. Come on, move on. It's also just to keep remembering that it is not their desires and attitudes that are the problem, that these are normal things they're experiencing, but what can we do? And so it was really interesting to be considering, like I literally started making a list. Okay, so if this is hard, what do we think is missing? What is happening? And one of the main things for even the dating resilience being low or like being able to move forward after a really painful time. This is something that I wonder and would love a discussion about, but I see this in all areas, not just dating, but we need to make sure we have people and specifically older people, because how do we build resiliency? And again, this could go a million different directions, but we have the opportunity to fail. And sometimes one of my questions was, and I would have to be real careful because I'd be stepping on my own toes of, is this the generation that was raised by the helicopter parents that never let anything bad happen to them? And so now when they're experiencing it, they don't know what to do. I don't know. But then also, are we the older people being the people to come along in front and be like, I have been there, or I hear you, or this is what my experience was, or even having real people in their own life that they have that intimacy with, that they can really say the things of, this right here is what happened, and I feel really alone in it, because sometimes I can think that everybody else has it all together and is experiencing all of these great things, and it's something wrong with me. And so I just am curious what you would think of, is it because even in personal life, we need people ahead of us and behind us in all areas of life, but especially like dating and relationships and friendships of how many older women or women that I hear my age are saying, making friendships at this time of life is hard sometimes. We are not just thrown together in a shared activity anymore. And especially even if you have older kids, you're not just experiencing the things. You're not just friends by default with other parents, the same. So we get to certain points where do we have people ahead of us and behind us, and do our teenagers and young adults, are we being the people ahead of them to not say things like, you will be exactly like me and let me tell you about my experience because this is exactly what you're experiencing.
Right.
However, there is real value in hearing from someone else that has been like, this was my experience.
Yeah.
And this is what happened. This is how I moved forward. In a real, genuine way, not to put a Pollyanna vibe on everything, but this was my experience. So, what are your thoughts on that? Because again, I don't want to be assuming things and being like, we maybe don't have people.
I do think that the experiences and the example that is set for our young people, it's changing. So I don't want to pick on technology and make that so cliche, but I'm going to be cliche and pick on technology a little bit. Our world is moving so much. Like if we go back and watch the Flintstones, that cartoon, and we would watch that, we would think, okay, I used to watch this as a kid, and this is so boring. Like it's so slow moving, right? And so our kids would never watch that. Or maybe some of them would, but our pace, the technology, the things that we do watch on television they're so much quicker, constant movement, even having more drama that comes in, because when life is normal, that's not interesting to us, and we're not going to cue into that TV show or whatever it might be. And so then advertisers aren't making money because people aren't watching, they're not getting the views. So it is this complex system that builds and builds and builds. And if we think about TikTok or Instagram and even the addictive cycle of that nonstop scrolling to constantly engage our brains with something different, we are training our brains for this instant gratification, and we don't take the time to slow down. And so cartoons today or movies or whatever, and I'm not saying all of them, but if we think about what our young people have been watching and what they tend to like, if they're not stepping back and having some psychoanalysis of themselves to understand all of the things, right? They're just going with the flow. Even we, as parents looking at that, are we demonstrating? I mean, it would be so boring to take your child on a date with, that's not what we do. But even in TV shows and moving, they don't watch people dating. It's this immediate jump in, immediate feelings. I'm going to pick on reality TV a little bit too. Love Island and The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, even that, it's this concept that we bring people together. There's an immediate Farmer Wants a Wife, fill in the blank, the reality show, immediate connection. And they have no basis of any kind of relationship, but it looks like this amazing, wonderful thing. And that's what they try to create. So I think in some ways we're training our brains and training our views of relationships. And so our young people are seeing this as well. It's just the nature of how culture has moved and the world has shifted. And now we're going, hey, wait a minute, this isn't actually helping us. As I was talking about the cartoons, I did think of this. My son, he's 21, and we were chatting a little bit about the findings in this. And he said, Bluey, a lot of people, even adults, enjoy watching Bluey. They like it so much because when you look at how fast-paced the world is and the cartoons and the influencers, all of those things, you stop and watch Bluey, and it's engaging, but it's slowed down, and it's a little more quiet, and it brings your brain a little bit of peace. And, so why is that? Well, because they must have the right formula to engage people. It's cute, and it's funny the way they pull it together, but it is a little bit slower paced. And our kids just don't live in a slow-paced world. And so still wanting, because at our core, the way that we are wired, we need relationships, and to be in them, we need that social piece, whether it's friendships or romantic. But our children are not growing up in a world where, it takes time. It's this instant gratification. Even think about the way that they learn. We have computers, right? And I'm going to sound like I'm picking on technology, but let's just talk about what it does. If my child can type in a Google Doc or Word, and spell check's going to pop up and tell them that they misspelled words so they can immediately correct it. Even to type can take less time than handwriting something. So even to complete an assignment, you no longer have to handwrite for hours. You don't even have to research for hours reading books. You can Google things, right? It's very quick. Put that paper together, have everything corrected in it, and turn it in. Yet for us, when we were younger, the way that education went, you had to do the research. That took time. You had to brainstorm. Remember, we had the bubbles and the lines that came out, your main point. And you had to have 3, and you had to have an introduction and 3 paragraphs to prove each of your points, and then a conclusion, right? 5-paragraph essay. Our young people don't. They just stream of thought. Not all of them, but a lot of them stream of thought. And then educators tell them that's perfectly fine. They don't say, hey, you need to rewrite this. We would get our papers back. It would have red pen marked over. Even a teacher saying, I can't read this, right? Better penmanship. And you would have to redo it and turn it in to improve that grade. Even the way our kids learn, everything is so much more instant gratification. We're not as patient. And as adults, we kind of love the technology because we also benefit from it. But we have that perspective of we know how long it used to take. So I think that there's a lot of that. And if that's instant gratification, then our kids aren't practicing it as much, and it's not as safe for them to feel like they're going to fail. Also, everything is publicized, right? We've got the internet, easy access. I'm going to take a picture. I'm going to snap. I'm going to tell the world that you did this stupid thing. For a while, was it Snapchat, Instagram? They were making fun of kids sitting at lunch tables eating if they were eating by themselves. They would take pictures, right, and then publicize it. Now you've got these kids that are terrified to eat in public because an awkward shot was taken of them. I mean, I eat salads all the time, and when I'm with people, I'm like, please don't judge me by the way I'm eating. Like lettuce that is not an easy thing to eat. It's going to fall out of my mouth, all the things. So I can't imagine having grown up in that time. But, well, no, it's not safe to fail because the whole world is going to attack you, and your peers are going to be the worst. So
And the flip side to that of having access to everything and it like going terribly, I read an article that was so interesting to go along with this because it was an article talking about a course to learn how to date. Like there are resources like that, and I do think they will be helpful. But I, again, want to say, like, there's some layers underneath it that need dealt with first. But the article, the person said, well, it's also this thing that you're kind of constantly wondering, is there somebody better out there? Yes. Because you have access to everyone.
Yes.
And that would not have been a thing before however long ago. And so that makes so much sense that you would, when you have someone in front of you who you are falling in love with, who you are building that intimacy, who it really could be a healthy, not perfect relationship that you could commit to, and then you're choosing that commitment regardless of who else might be out there, there's maybe this kind of thought of, but what if? What if there's somebody better? And so that is a real thing that's going on in their minds too, because of the culture that is now happening. And so that would be something that we just need to always be mindful of it. And I hear you when you say, I don't want to pick on technology. It certainly has its pros and cons, but it also is reality. Like this is what is happening. This is what is being experienced, and how can we move forward in that? And so, even with the technology, we both were talking about earlier when we were talking about this podcast, how the dating apps, it was reported by the young people that it's turned dating into consumerism.
Yes.
That it's not like actual. So they are
like you can buy a relationship.
They are
then you're
desiring.
disappointed that it didn't work out.
They're desiring connection, serious emotional relationship connection, but the way to get there isn't starting that way. So we've said so many things about what is actually happening and purposes of why. And again, that conversation could keep going of well, why do you think? Because this also cannot be cliche or just quippy. But truly, the bottom line foundation for all of it is that it is being spoken into them, instilled in them. They are practicing the value they have. Like that really is a foundational piece, not just this tagline that we do have here at Clarity. We mean it. You have so much value. Yes. And when you really start practicing that about yourself, you will confidently move through the world. When you have people around you that are reminding you of that, when you don't remember it yourself, you can confidently move through the world. Again, why we need people ahead of us and behind us. So that is a lot of it too. But really, we could keep going on about, well, I wonder why.
Yeah, and I would hope too that as we're having this conversation, our listeners would hear it, and there's probably other ideas going off in their minds of thoughts that they have too about what they've seen experienced in their own lives or watched happen in their children's lives or other young adults close to them. So I agree, this really could go on. And it is an interesting survey with all these results, just the study to see how this is affecting our young people. And I mean, again, it's looking at the future of marriage, but so many of our young people want to get married that it's interesting to see. Okay. Well, this has been a fun conversation. We're going to wrap up part 1 today, and we will talk more in part 2, our next episode, about ways that we can help our teens and young adults learn some of that dating resiliency, some great ideas on dating, and hopefully inspire others to find ways to connect with their young people in their lives. Hey, thanks for listening. This podcast is brought to you by Clarity of Central Indiana. We hope you enjoyed today's topic. Be sure to leave us a review and share with your friends. You can find any links mentioned in the episode notes. Always remember that you have value, you have worth, you matter.